All right, so welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Ryman, your broker builder, and today we have a special guest coming from Naperville, Illinois. He's CEO of Grid Connect, a manufacturer and distributor of networking products and wireless sensors. He is responsible for developing the vision for the ConnectSense consumer product line, a group of wireless products steeped in the technology of the Internet of Things. He is an expert on the Internet of Things and has spoken on the topic at many conferences across the nation. He started his career as at Accenture, where he was a consultant working on systems and IT projects for the number of Fortune 500 companies throughout the country. He earned a bachelor's degree in informatics from Indiana University, has dedicated himself to analyzing and innovating in the arena of networking products. He also is the co-host of the Smart Home Show, great podcast. I'm really excited to have him on my show, talk about a huge topic in my industry. Adam Justice, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm pretty pumped to have you on. I've been wanting somebody in your field on my show because it's such a big topic. Where me as a builder, we're doing a ton of technology and smart home stuff. So I'm pretty excited to have you on and dive deeper into that.
Good to be here and interested to talk about this subject.
Great. So I want to get started out by asking about your background. I always do this. So let's talk about who is Adam Justice.
Sure. So that's a very broad question, but we'll go with some of the high level personal ones. So I've been married 11 years now. Hopefully my wife doesn't hear this and get me in trouble. No, more than that, 13 years now. And have three kids who are 10, 7, and 2.5. So they keep me very, very busy. On the professional, I guess, personal side as well, I've always been kind of a technologist and interested in technology. My dad was always in this space, so we always had PCs from a very young age. In high school, I learned HTML and web technologies. I was doing my dad's company website and professionally, selling web services to various businesses growing up. So always been kind of interested in technology, the web, all that kind of stuff. And kind of went to school interested in that space and came out, as you mentioned, worked for Accenture, which is a huge technology consulting company. I got on an airplane every Monday morning for probably 50 weeks out of the year. Did that for 3.5, 4 years, got tired of getting on an airplane every Monday morning. And then joined our family business. So it was a business my father started in 2003, Grid Connect, and really took a lot of what I had learned at Accenture and applied it to the small business and kind of helped us grow. And mid 2000s, saw this opportunity. We had this great expertise in networking products, and there was this kind of growing topic of the Internet of Things. And I was just like, we're really well poised to do something in this space. Mm-hmm. We really have this deep expertise in networking technologies. So let's focus on that and do some things with that. And I think we'll get into some more of that, but that's kind of where we launched off on getting more involved in the IoT and smart home space.
Yeah, your story. So I'm not in the technology end of it, but being involved in a family business, I'm the same exact way. Growing up, you probably never thought you were going to get into that business, you going a different route, but it kind of probably helped you learn a lot and improve the company that your father started and so on too, just by you being able to implement your knowledge on real world stuff that you did personally, I'm sure has really taken the company to another level, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good thing to not start out of college in the family business.
Hmm.
I think anybody who has a business in the family, I would recommend that you go off and get some experience at as big a company as you can find. And one of the cool things about working at Accenture was it really wasn't like I worked at one company. I probably worked at 5 or 6 companies in different industries. So we consulted in all different fields. And so you got to learn all these little things about different businesses along the way. One that always stuck with me, probably relevant to your space as a builder, Wolseley Ferguson, which does plumbing supplies,
Hmm.
building supplies, things like that. I did a project there, and it really stuck with me that they had an executive training program. If you wanted to be an if they were hiring you to be an executive in that company, the first, I don't know, 3 to 6 months of your job there was not in the boardroom. It was working the desk at the front office. It was getting your forklift lift driver permit. It was working every aspect of the business to learn it from the ground up, doing basically every job in the building. And that really struck me. And he said they said there are people who interview for these jobs, and I'm like, I'm not driving a forklift, I'm an executive. And they're like, okay, done, you're out. So I picked up stuff like that at different businesses, and then applied that as I came into the small business. So it was a great opportunity to learn from a lot of different industries, a lot of different businesses, and how they do things.
Yeah, I highly agree with you because I've said this in the past too. Is I mean, just getting the experience leading up to where I'm at now too, and actually designing homes and building them personally. And when I started out too, it was a lot of me working in the field, digging the ditches, doing being on job sites in general, but watching, seeing what subcontractors were doing, and so on, and learning. But I've also been in different companies too, and different sales arenas as well, to where I learned from other people, like you said too. And it is a better thing too, instead of just going out of college jumping right into the family business too, because learning as much as you have too, like you said, has brought you to where you are, which is awesome, man. So good for you. For sure. So let's discuss your business a little bit more. How did your company start, and why did you choose to be in the businesses you're in? I mean, you brushed on it, but let's go deeper into it. What was your reasoning?
Yeah. So, the business started in 2003, um, by my father. It was, he had a previous company he started in the 90s. That company got acquired by a company in California. They worked for them for, I don't know, roughly 3 years, and then got spit back out. So, the model of the original company was to work with networking product companies overseas. So he would go find these great vendors that didn't have representation in the United States, and then stock their products, support their products, really understand and know the products very well, and then represent them in the US as a distributor. So that's where it really started. And the reason was just to provide unique and useful networking products, and really deeply understand them. So I think in the distributor space, it's one thing to just stock products and sell them. It's a
Hmm.
whole nother thing to be able to deeply understand them, support them, and help customers with them. So that was kind of our proposition to the companies we represented: is we're not just going to stock and sell your stuff. We're going to really understand it, take burden off of you, and provide a better way to sell these products. So some of those partnerships are uh, have been around since the beginning of the business. And then the business kind of just grew from seeing needs in the market. So we would see a gap in the marketplace where we could build a product and do something that nobody else really had an outside solution for. So with that, we started growing our engineering capabilities, and kind of going from there. So, I think that reason sticks today. It's to develop innovative and useful solutions and solve customers' problems.
Yeah, which I mean, especially in your space, not a lot of customers understand, how to use these things and so on. So what you just said that right there too is teaching them along with not just selling them, but actually teaching them and explaining it is huge
Yeah,
too.
or sometimes it's identifying a problem with a customer, identifying that there is no solution or they need something, that's what we have plus a little bit different spin on it. So we always work with people to do custom stuff as well.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So, as you know, I want to dive deeper and right into this with you. So, as you know, my show is all about kind of delivering as much value to the customer as possible. So, for people that don't know what it is that you're doing, or just so they understand it a little bit more, let's kind of explain what is the Internet of Things, because there's probably people out there that are like, and I deal with down here where I'm at, I deal with a lot of the older generation, stuff like that. And some of them that they see this technology in houses, it's like they saw a ghost. So, it's just, let's explain, let's start there. What is the Internet of Things?
So yeah, at a broad concept, the Internet of Things was a concept that um, refers to internet enabling. So whether that's Wi-Fi, Ethernet, or there's a lot of different other networking technologies. We won't go into all of them, but adding internet capabilities to a physical object.
Okay.
And those things can enable it to be controlled remotely, to be automated, things like that. So this is the space where we talk a lot about, in your space, smart home, intelligent home, the home of the future. Think the Jetsons, stuff like that. So that's the vision people have for this space. And um I think it's really all about solving problems and making your life easier. So, in the residential space, it's like, how can we, I think part of what's been the struggle of this space is it probably started of like, how can we just add technology? And that's, I think things got a little bit messy there for a little while because people were just going bonkers. Just where can we apply technology to the home? That's not the right way to look at this. It's how can we solve problems and make people's lives easier through adding technology to the home. And with the voice enabled speakers from Amazon, Google, Apple, those kinds of ecosystems is where this vision is starting to come to reality.
Yeah, and I agree, because there is a lot of technology now, and we're going to get into that a little bit too, that you can add to homes too. Some of it, I look at it like I just saw a cooktop that we just installed that was Wi-Fi, and I'm thinking, what are you going to use a Wi-Fi cooktop for? Are you going to have an egg sitting on the pan, just sitting overnight, and then you hit your phone on, and then it's cooking your egg? Or, I guess that's a way to do it, but and this was an induction cooktop too, so I was kind of just, yeah. But it's amazing the more and more stuff you're seeing in these homes too, with that little Wi-Fi sticker on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's part of it is, as you go higher and higher end, you
Hmm.
may not have a choice, but you definitely have a choice as to whether or not you connect it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I to a certain extent, I really believe that things have to be a great device first and then have connectivity that adds value to it on top of that. And so, the your stove example, like that better be a great stove. It better have great physical buttons. It better be an awesome stove first and foremost,
Hmm.
as you would think of it. And if there's some added value for somebody that wants to connect it, great. But somebody should also have the choice to not connect it and still have the same stove experience.
And be able to cook an egg on a regular
Yeah.
without having to turn on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know you specialize in providing a bunch of services involving the Internet of Things to address every aspect of a home's connection to the internet. So let's discuss the services you provide and how they benefit the customer.
Yeah, so a lot of our IoT and smart home stuff is done under our ConnectSense brand,
Okay.
and the focus there has just been through solving various issues. Um, and it started with wireless sensors; those are no longer in the market. Um, but mostly today, we are focused on how we can monitor and control power in the home and use that for automating, making you more aware of how you're using energy in the home and things like
Hmm.
that. So our latest product is a in-wall outlet, which is designed to go throughout the home. So we have both a 15 and a 20 amp version, and it allows you to control and monitor any plug-in device throughout your home. So lamps, fans, heaters, anything you can imagine. Those are the great things to control. You can monitor anything you can plug in. And so we're trying to make people more aware of kind of where their energy use is going, and give them a picture of that. So we, give detailed energy data, as well as throw a dollar amount on that, so you can really see, okay, oh, maybe not a problem you have in Florida, but up here in cold Chicagoland, that heater you're running in your office, that thing actually costs, whatever, $20 a month. Maybe, consider using that a little bit less.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense too. I mean, here in Florida, we're running our ACs constantly too, and I had, I've had solar guys on here because it's all about energy efficiency now and where people can save and so on. Even with the stuff we're putting in houses now, with tinted glass, and the insulation is spraying insulation and so on. Everybody's trying to find a way to save some money and get away from paying the electric companies as much as they are. So, and what you're doing to monitor that is a great thing. It needs to happen too.
Yeah, and I think the interesting aspect too is the electrical company. You would think like, oh, well, the electrical companies must be loving this. They, bills
Hmm.
go higher. No, they want you to conserve energy too, because I've learned more and more about this, but the whole thing about, there's the electrical, companies are designed to meet a certain demand of on the grid. And in times where everybody's running their AC, and maybe everybody just came home and they're charging their electric vehicles, and and that load goes to a place where they don't have enough energy to
Hmm.
supply the grid anymore. So they have to fire up a coal plant, they have to fire up a bunch of other resources, which may not be as good for the environment. So people don't like that. B, also are very expensive. So that's a place where they're either losing money or, whatever. So that the energy companies are actually invested in wanting you to conserve energy as well. So that's why they're subsidizing solar. They're, doing all these things to try to, they never want to fire up that extra plant.
Yeah, that's good to know. I never even would have thought of that because you think the more energy that they're producing, or the more energy people are using, I should say, the more money they're making. But yeah, that's really good to know, actually, too. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the solar guys don't, they probably know that, understand that too, but they should. So anyway, but let's talk about home technology. This is a big one for me. This is one of the main things I've wanted to have you on for. As we both know, we are seeing more and more homes connected to the internet. I mean, if you're building a home these days and they're not able to connect, you're way out of the game here. As people can literally control an entire home from their phone. What products are out there that you recommend for whole home automation, whether it's Control 4, Lutron, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a couple different approaches, and we can kind of cover this in a few different questions. So,
Hmm.
whole home, they're the probably the two biggest ecosystems I'm seeing. We're starting to get more involved in this space, the CEDIA space. Um, are like Control 4 and Savant. So there are a bunch of different whole home ecosystems. And then so those are being two of the major ones. The other thing is also, there's also a DIY approach too. So You can either, work with a third party and have them do everything for you and go that whole home route. Um, with some of those systems, and Lutron being a great component of some of those in either route.
Hmm.
um and or you can kind of piecemeal it together. It sort of depends on what approach you want to take and how you want to go about it.
Okay. So yeah, so it's all about the approach and so on. I mean, what I'm seeing, what about like user friendliness on those too? Because I mean, we've done a lot of control for, and I've heard just the reason being, and like I said, I deal with a lot of the older demographic down here. It's more user friendly to them. Would you say that's the same? In your opinion, that's true, or is there other systems? Just so people know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on your use case and what you're looking for.
Okay.
Some people, yeah, they don't want to deal with, getting into the weeds and dealing with it. They just want somebody to give them a remote and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a Control 4 or something like that is great for that kind of demographic. But people that want to be able to switch things out, kind of change up their system, that's more leads to the DIY approach. So I've definitely heard people who love the Control 4 and that kind of stuff for that ease of use, but I've also heard people who are like, yeah, it's great, but then if I want to change one thing in my system, I have to call a guy. He's got to roll a truck out here.
Hmm.
So I think it has pros and cons to it. And yeah, if you want to be hands off, it's a great approach. But if you want to be more hands on and more in control of the technology in your home, then you may want to look at another approach.
Okay. And then another thing too, like what would you recommend for somebody to avoid issues in the home? For example, control 4, one thing goes out, they got to get that guy in the truck to come out and reset the system because they don't know how to do it. And what systems would be better in that aspect where they don't have to do stuff like that? Just avoid issues, make it easier on them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we said, that's definitely the one of the advantages of having a professional come in and install it. It's also usually pretty rock solid. So,
Hmm.
they'll try to make it as simple to use and as reliable as well. And the other thing is just kind of making sure you have all your ducks in a row when it comes to networking and things like that. So this is all, you can have the greatest system in the world, but if you don't have good networking gear and
Hmm.
reliable networking points throughout your home, then it's all going to fall down from there. So big fan of things like Eero for Wi-Fi, um, and other things like that.
Yeah, networking and the networking aspect's huge too because I mean, being in Florida, we have a lot of power outage too. So one of those power outages happens, you lose your system. Most of the time, the whole thing goes down, and then you're gonna, so it's can be quite a pain. And I've had people say that to me. They're like, "Oh, this system's awesome, but I lose power, and I got to get somebody here, and so on." So I mean, it's just I don't know if there's ways around that, but
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to think about, and you want to make sure it fails back reliably as well. I thought about that a lot this last year when California had their major power outage and people were without power for days.
mhm.
It the some people have backups and generators and all that kind of stuff, and you'd want to think about, some of the companies we're talking to are really trying to think about some of those things. Is what, in a state where the power goes out and you have to go to either a battery backup or a generator, how do you want to intelligently bring up those loads, or shut off certain things in the home? So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on some of that, but as we have more and more incidents like out in California, I think it's causing people to think about it a lot more.
Yeah, I highly agree. Because I mean, here too, we deal with hurricanes. The system goes down, and then you go on a generator. But is it going to restart your connectivity too? Because I mean, the last hurricane we had, I remember all these people had their cameras and all this stuff, but they couldn't connect to any of them. So they're calling me, and I do home watch for some of the houses we built, and they're call. I'm getting 10 calls from different people. My cameras aren't working. I don't know if my generator's on, because their generator's connected to their home too. So they're trying to, can you go listen, see if my generator's on? Can you go check my AC? My alarm's going off, I think. So it's like, it was a scramble.
Yeah, and that was the crazy thing about the California stuff was not only did they shut off the power grid, but they also shut off the cellular network too.
Hmm.
So what would normally be some of the backup technology of, using cellular stuff, that wasn't there either. So I think all of this fancy stuff can be all great and wonderful, and it kind of goes back to the point about the stovetop, but it all has to work manually too, because you gotta, I've had that happen where we lose power or we lose internet, and you all of a sudden realize, oh, crap, I gotta go around and switch off every light in the house and things like
Hmm.
that. So you got to have the ability to do that kind of stuff and think about those worst case scenarios, and what does this look like, in that case. You still want to be able to turn things on and off, and do some basic stuff even if you don't have internet.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a solution in the future coming up. I'm sure there's a lot of guys, smart guys working on that right now too. But until then, yeah, be able to have a home watch guy like me, or be able to turn your light switch on by a paddle switch. So
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Let's go. I want to go kind of beyond, and I'll ask you about all these too. But I want to go beyond, your Alexas, your Google Homes, your portals, your all your voice recognition items and voice products. What are some technology products that we will see in more homes in the future?
Yeah, this is an interesting kind of out there question. I think you're just going to see more connected products in places that make sense,
Hmm.
and I think the future is going to bring the those products working together in new and interesting ways. And I think where we're headed, and where I'd like to see things head, is not where you have to do this command and control stuff like we do today, asking an assistant turn on the lights for you and things like that. I think the home should start anticipating your
Hmm.
needs and changing things for you. So, simple stuff like if you turn on the lights at 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom,
Hmm.
the lights should just know to turn on at 20%, things like that. So it can be really subtle things. And right now you could do that, but that would involve a ton of programming or a CDA guy or whatever. Like it, as homes become more intelligent in the future, I think some of that stuff should just adapt to our needs and more things like that. Interesting example of this, I've heard the CTO of Roomba speak a number of times, and one of the things they're working on is integration with lighting, because one of the things, the vacuum, believe it or not, is better at vacuuming. It's got vision systems when it has lights on. So the ability for the vacuum to turn on the lights throughout the house when it's running, is critical to being good at vacuuming. So I think just stuff like that, where different systems in your home can start working together intelligently, will just yield for better technology and more comfortable homes in the future.
Yeah, that'd be probably amazing too. Because I agree. I mean, I don't think people are going to have to ask anymore. I think, and like you just said, they're going to be able to come home. I mean, they can now. They can come home. The lights are on at a certain time. You can program it to do that. But I also think it's going to automatically sense certain things too. Like if you fall asleep with the TV on, your TV is going to turn off itself. Stuff like that, to where it's just the little things start. Maybe with the stove thing, we'll go back to that. We keep touching on this, that maybe it is heating up at a certain point because you get up at that same time too. and where you can just drop an egg on it and it cooks the egg, stuff like that
Yeah, or
too.
if it's on and everybody leaves the house, then turning off the stove for safety reasons.
Hmm.
So I think there's, people laugh at something like that. Like, why would I ever need Wi-Fi on my stove? But there's actually a really good safety aspect, to that, of knowing that if you forget to turn it on. I've done that before. I've left the stove
Yeah,
on.
me
We've
too.
gone somewhere away and then come home and go, oh man, like that could have been really bad.
Hmm.
um and we don't have an induction stove either. I'm talking gas burner, actual flame
Oh
going.
yeah,
Yeah, and you're like,
yeah, yeah.
ugh. So I think there's a huge safety aspect to these things as well. So I think once the technology gets more mature, it may get to a point where an insurance company says, hey, if you want a break in your homeowner's insurance, you better have that connected stove that's going to make sure your house doesn't set on fire,
Hmm.
because we've done the math and we've proven that stuff leads to lower instances of fire. So some of that stuff can make sense purely from a safety aspect as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've left the oven on. So I'll admit to that one right there. But I mean, it's like it's the same people that are saying, "Why would I ever use that? I can just turn it on myself." Are the same people that probably said, "I'm never going to have an Amazon Alexa in my house," and now they do, and they're talking to it every day.
Yep.
So it's just it's crazy because you get used to, and we all adapt to it too. At first, we're like, "What is this thing?" But then it starts happening, and like I said too, every new home should have some kind of connectivity to it. If it doesn't, it should be wired ready to go for it so that the people can add it if they buy it, and we're big on that as a builder. So anyway, let's I want to go into the pre-planning stages. What should customers look for in this stage? So if they're planning on getting, smart home technology and so on with the company, we both know they're going to shop different technology or home tech contractors. What can we do to help them select the right contractor based on the quality and also connection, and not just based on price?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was in this space, building a new home, I would just really want to see examples of their work and what they had done, and make sure that you're going with somebody that kind of knows what they're doing and willing to look at all different angles, and not just maybe hawk one system. That there's a lot of different options, and can kind of, I think with anything, you want somebody that's going to really dig in and understand your needs and design a solution around you, rather than put in something that's just kind of one size fits all. So I think that would be another, a big aspect of it. Um, and then one of the other things I was thinking, this where this question was going, but not really. But so I think we should also talk about, like, if you're building a new home from scratch, like what are some of the technology considerations you want to do?
Hmm.
Um, I think when I've built one home and I bought one home now, and when we built our first home, we were one of those crazy people that put Ethernet throughout our home, and I thought we were a little crazy, and they were like, "Well, there's one home we've built for a guy who has more Ethernet plugs than you." And he moved I think he had moved his laundry room downstairs, and his laundry, what was supposed to be his laundry room on the main floor, was a server room. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want more Ethernet jacks than that guy. But I think that is an interesting thing to consider, as if you're building a home, because you can have all the Wi-Fi access points in the world, but if you can wire those to a central point, you're going to have a much better networking
Hmm.
infrastructure in your home. And some stuff, it's still just better to have a wired connection versus wireless. So I think that is really important to consider. And when we bought our current home, it had Cat 5 or Cat 6 in a bunch of places in the home,
Mm-hmm.
but they were terminated for phone jacks. Well, I don't need any phone jacks, so I had somebody come in and re-terminate them all to be Ethernet, and then kind of have a backbone network. So
Mm-hmm.
all my Wi-Fi access points are wired. um a number of things like all the media stuff in the home is wired. So anything where you're doing high bandwidth stuff, all the video stuff is wired. So anything that's going to require a lot of bandwidth, you really don't want to depend on wireless for that. I mean, there's so many great wireless technologies now, but I think at the core of a really good connected home should always be a wired backbone.
Yeah, no, I agree because it should all, and like you just said too, it should definitely all go to one central area too. I mean, with the bigger homes we're doing, even in some smaller ones, we're doing one central access point in an AC area. Obviously, you can't really put them in the garage and stuff like that, but make sure it's in an AC area where all that electronics is constantly breathing and so on. But it's all in one central place to where if there is an issue, that's where you go, I'm a big believer on everything being wired because that's how it's all connected throughout the whole entire home too. And you saying you had Ethernet plugs on that first house, I mean, yeah, you were ahead of the game because I mean, I don't think we've done a phone jack on a house, and I don't even know. It might be for somebody that's like, oh, just in case for alarm. And then you're like, you don't really need that for alarm anymore either.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
it's crazy how far things have come. And then you were ahead of the game on that one big time. But, so as far as, troubleshooting and stuff like that and the install process, it's basically what you said too, making sure you're with the right contractor and so on. Um, I kind of want to get into this. Is there, and I brushed on this earlier, is there certain brands you are recommending that are better than others? I mean, um, whether it's plugs, doorbells, obviously with the plugs, you're going to recommend yours, security lighting, heating, cooling, kitchen appliances, vacuums. I mean, there's so many things in this space now that are coming out left and right. The list goes on. I mean, what products are best? And then I'll get into my next part on that and ask you what do you think out of Alexa and all that. But let's start with the basic products.
Yeah. So I'll have to send you a list and maybe you can throw it in the notes. But there was an
Okay.
episode of our podcast where we went in and did an overview of everything we have in our home. And that
Awesome.
would be a great one to reference. But I'll hit on some of the big ones. So we talked about kind of that approach earlier. My approach has been more the DIY kind of building things here and there. And
Okay.
one of the reasons I like this approach is because you can kind of have different best in breed products from different manufacturers. And also, you don't have to buy it all at once and have this big expense all at once. If you're building a house, then, maybe that makes sense, or at least focusing on some of the core, you know, light switches, door locks, some of that stuff that you would put in anyways when you're building.
Hmm.
Um, I've been retrofitting. So for me, it's just like solving a problem here and there and kind of adding to the system as we go on. So I think one of the big ones I'll start with is I'm a big fan of Lutron.
Okay.
Their DIY line is called Cassetta. They also have higher end lines that work in the CEDIA world with your control force and things like that. Um, but from a light switch perspective, I think they have a great system. That's what I continue to put in throughout my home. Mostly we've done that on kind of the first floor of the house. And a little while ago, I was like, oh, yeah, we have most of the light switches on the first floor covered. Like, what would I need to, finish it? And I started counting and I'm like, oh, man, like it's a lot. There's a lot more still to be done than I thought. So, and sometimes, I get home on the weekend and after working all week in this space, and the last thing I want to do is go install a bunch of light switches. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely want to keep going on that. But it's a little bit here and there. Door locks. I'm a little biased because Schlage Locks is a customer of ours. We make a Wi-Fi to BLE bridge for them. But I have one of their door locks, and I'm a big fan of the stuff they're doing. And I think that goes back to also what I said earlier, which is have a great product and a great experience even without the connectivity, and the connectivity becomes an adder. They have a keypad on the front door, and I would say 80% of our use of that lock is through that keypad. And so that's super nice to be able to give different codes to different people and use it that way. And also just to have the notifications of every entry point in the house when something happens. So if I'm away from home and the front door opens, I want to know about that and be able to do something with that. So big fan of that. I'm also really big into Ring stuff. So Ring doorbell was probably the first foray into that space. I think they've killed it in their products and put out some really great stuff. So I've expanded from there. I also have a floodlight cam in the backyard, which I half wanted for the camera, half wanted just for, nice controllable lights and motion activated lighting in the backyard. So they're really nice and bright and pretty easy to use. And then I also have a Ring alarm system as well. So that's a nice kind of DIY alarm system. They also have some really great packages to retrofit. If you have an existing alarm system and sensors in your home, you can kind of plug into that and reuse some of the stuff you already have in your home. So that's a cool option as well. So big fan of them. Obviously, yeah, ConnectSense for plugs and in-wall outlets. Shameless plug there. But yeah, I mean, I think those are some of the core ones I have throughout the home. I've got EcoBees for thermostats. I have Nest Protects for smoke alarms, which are mostly good. So yeah, that's some of the core stuff. But yeah, like I said, I'll give you the episode number of the Smart Home Show if you really want the full deep dive on everything I have in my home.
Yeah, what's that episode number, just so people listening?
I'm gonna have to go look it up.
No, you're
give you an edit point here.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And then one thing next I was going to ask you too, out of the voice systems, and I brought them up a little bit earlier, out of your Alexas, your Googles, your Apples, your Facebooks, which one of those would you recommend? Obviously, probably Alexa is probably the most popular out of all of them, I'm guessing.
All right, so episode 168 of the Smart Home Show, what devices are in Adam's house? So you can go back and check that one out.
Perfect. Yeah, go check that out, everybody, if you want to hear, because I love the do-it-yourself approach on it, too. I mean, I'm doing it to my house, and it's just because not everybody can build and add all that, implement all that control, all the Control 4 stuff and all that smart, into one thing and afford to do it. The do-it-yourself approach, too, is better, easier approach for some other people. So I love that. So go check that out. And as far as, like I said, what are you thinking as far as voice controls? Are you using them? And if so, what's the most popular? What are you thinking on that?
So yeah, I have everything in my house. I try to, being in this space, I try to live it fully and kind of understand it. So we have devices from every ecosystem, Apple, Google, Amazon. The one we have the most of, though, throughout the home and is kind of the primary voice ecosystem in our home has to be Amazon. So,
Okay.
And I think that just kind of evolved over time. And the key piece for them was those cheap Alexa dots. So, I got some of those for free at conferences and just kind of picked those up and then started putting those around the house. So really like that for like the intercom functions to be able to, call the kids down for dinner or, message them, things like that. So, some of that gets a little ridiculous. The other day I told myself, we're not having a conversation through intercom pages. Come down here and talk to me. But yeah, I mean, I think that ecosystem still has some room to grow, but I think they're continuing to invest in it, and it's going in a good direction.
Awesome. Awesome. So, a big topic is always pricing. Not many people know, especially in this degree of a home, how much they should be paying. I mean, it's still a lot of the technology has been around there, but it keeps, obviously developing and so on and growing. So, it's such a huge topic in your industry. What should customers know upfront when discussing pricing structure on products and services?
Yeah, I'll share some knowledge from my father, which is you never regret buying the best. You might regret what you paid for it, but you won't kick yourself for buying the best. So
Mm,
I think there's a wide variety of pricing in this market, and you can buy cheap overseas stuff on Amazon, and then you're going to feel the effects of it too. So that stuff's not very reliable. You're constantly going to have to be supporting it, dealing with issues. It might just stop working altogether. So I definitely believe in you get what you pay for,
hmm.
whether that's products or services or otherwise. So, I think it's just a matter of kind of putting in the time and research and understanding the quality. A huge fan of the wire cutter. Would recommend, looking at their guides for stuff as well. They do very thorough testing. Same for CNET, is another resource I look at constantly. The Rye and the guys over there are doing, deep testing on lighting and light bulbs, and, they just go through the gambit on these products. So, I think anything they endorse is going to be a strong endorsement. And so put in the time, put in the research, and don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money, and you'll get good quality out of it.
No, I highly, highly agree. And I've said this multiple times on this show, because a lot of the people that I've interviewed are good at what they do, but they're not the cheapest. And that's for a reason too. You get what you pay for in the long run. I'm sure you're the same with your company.
Yep.
You're developing a good product that's going to last. It's going to do what it's supposed to. And, that's it. The cheaper one's probably not going to last more than likely, especially in the tech world. So,
Yeah, I'm not going to throw out names, but there's a couple companies that have kind of disrupted the industry by putting out really cheap products, and
hmm.
there are constantly see people on Twitter that are complaining about, oh, this changed, or oh, this isn't working now, or I get a notification 10 seconds later that or a minute later that my door opened. And like, what good is that? And it's kind of like, well, you get what you paid for, and you know what did you expect when you bought this super budget product.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying those companies are necessarily trying to be malicious or things like that, but you also if you spread far and wide and you have huge scale all of a sudden, and you're just kind of running around trying to put out fires, they're just not able to keep up with that also. So that's part of the equation as well.
Well, it's like in the scheme of a house too, and I've said this constantly. We see these builders that come into the picture that are doing such cheap houses, and they're offering such a low square foot price. But what are they doing? They're doing a mass amount of house and product, but then when things start to slow down, guess what? The tailwind stops and it starts catching up to them, and then they're robbing Peter, paying Paul. But those last people towards the end, they don't get their houses finished,
Yeah.
and that's what I tell these people. And then these people end up getting screwed and so on. And it's the same way in every industry. They offer a cheap product. They're trying to put out mass amounts of it to make money and then keep up with their product and their demand. And then eventually once it slows down, because so many people get pissed off, that it just catches up to them, and then they're screwed. They go out of business, and
Yeah,
you're
and
still in business.
right. And the quality may not be there. And in a home, you may not be able to see that right away,
Hmm.
but those are things you're going to see over
Big
two,
time. Yeah.
5, 10 years. So, I think when you buy a really quality home, it may not look, you may not see all of that right away, but the repairs you're going to have to do on the
Mm-hmm.
home in 5, 10, 20 years. If it's really a home you're planning on staying in long term, that investment's going to go a long way.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it all catches up to them in the end. I mean, I've seen even some cheaper builders within 2 years the thing's falling apart and a deck's being replaced up top, and the people just could have paid that more money to the guy that's going to do it the right way, and probably you know ended up paying less in the long run. So anyway, next thing I wanted to kind of brush on too, and you have a little bit here, but product knowledge is so key. You should know as much about your product that you can. You kind of brushed on a little bit that you have all these different products in your home, so that's the way you're applying. But what other ways are you applying this strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of taking the time when you're setting up new stuff in your home to
Mm-hmm.
understand its capabilities, understand what it's doing. Um, and if it's something you're really invested in, I think another piece of this too is keeping up with what's going on with it too. So, one of the great things about these IoT and connected smart home products is they get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a manufacturer of these devices, we're able to constantly continue to innovate, provide updates to the device, to the software, things like that. So these products evolve over time. So you want to be kind of keeping up with whether that's notes in the app that of new changes, new features, or their website or social media, just kind of those products you have in your home, stay up on what's going on with them, and you might be pleasantly surprised of new capabilities that you have in these devices.
Yeah, that's great advice right there. 'Cause, I mean, especially in your field too, because it's constantly changing too, and they're constantly updating certain things within it. So it's important to stay up to date as far as all that. Let's go into your a little bit as far as you and your company. Customer service is so important. I talk to everybody about this too. What things, and it's within any company, and especially in your industry, and maintaining that relationship, because you're going to have to, because things are going to update, like I said. So, what things has your company done to create a better focus on customer service?
I think the job number one, first and foremost, is to put in the time on the product up front. And so certainly we will take care of our customers and service them as well. But if we don't hear from them, that can be a good thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, hopefully reviews and things like that. But, I don't want a customer to have to pick up the phone and call us and do troubleshooting and stuff like that. So we're trying to think of all the angles, all of the we call them the sad paths, but like all of the places where things can go wrong, and make it as easy as possible for the customer to troubleshoot and get the product running. So I think first and foremost is putting in the time to um, build a great and reliable product from the beginning, and minimize those customer support issues. And I will say a lot of our connected products, we don't have a ton of support on them because of that. We've put in the time to upfront. The other thing is, especially with the in-wall switch, we put together a huge knowledge base where we're trying to identify all the different issues and things like that up front. So there's a place for customers to go if they do have a problem, or if they do have questions, they can dig in and kind of do self-service. Because I don't know what you're like, but I don't want to pick up the phone when I have an issue. So I'm going to put in a ton of time and effort to try to solve those things on my own. And then, for those customers that do call, we have great tech service people that, really try to deeply understand their problems, and they're connected really well to our product team too. So as issues arise, they're working with the product team to understand what's going on and how can we fix this going forward too. So if one person saw this, we really want to understand the issue. So sometimes we're buying weird routers from different manufacturers, trying to reproduce issues. So we try to dig in deep to prevent those issues from happening for other customers in the future.
And I've talked to a lot of people on the show, and it's something similar thing that you're saying, and it's setting that expectation up front, so what is going to come throughout the long run, instead of just putting something out there and or dealing with it later on and saying, if they got a problem, I'll deal with it later. You're by you setting that expectation up front, you're getting rid of a lot of issues in the future, and that's the right way to do it. And you doing the research and looking over everything and making sure it's right, and then the product testing on different routers too. I mean, that's unbelievable too. That's the right way to do it for sure too. So what about like long-term relationships? Obviously keeping that steady relationship with your customers is a big deal. What are you doing after, let's say, they bought something or a product of yours, to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to stay in touch via social media. We talked
Mhm.
a little bit about staying up on, what's going on. So we've got newsletters, we've got social media, things like that. And the other big thing for us too is we really want to understand how customers are using the product, why they bought it, and even if somebody ends up returning it, we want to understand that too. What went wrong? What going on? Things like that. So we actually do deep customer interviews to try to understand this, and that's a source for also looking for areas where we can continue to improve, add new features, things like that. So, we're constantly talking to customers and wanting to understand how they're using the products in their lives. Because obviously, we've got ideas of how we think we can solve people problems, but um, the best stuff really comes from
Mhm.
talking to customers, understanding how they're using it, and going from there.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said right there is why you're successful at what you're doing and why you're having success, because you're actually listening to what the customer wants. And not a lot of business, and it's sad, not a lot of businesses are doing that. They're not asking the right questions like you are, or doing the right testing and so on. But that's why you're going to be ahead of a lot of the other ones too, for sure. So, big question here. I've been asking it to everybody, and it's more about you personally. You have built amazing companies that continue to grow every day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us grow? And I've had different answers on this question every time.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things for me is to always be learning, always be asking questions. And um, I read something recently that really kind of stuck with me, which was that when you ask a question, that creates a space in your mind to learn something new and expand. And so if you stop asking questions, you're going to stop learning. And so, stuff may be in your face all the time. But unless you're asking questions, you're not going to expand and grow. So, for me personally and in a business, it's constantly learning from others, learning from peers. I'm a part of EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization. We have a chapter here in Chicago. I'm sure you have many chapters in Florida as well. They're all throughout the country and the world. And so that's been a great resource for me as an entrepreneur to um, sit down with peers. So we have a small forum group. It's 8 of us. And so, constantly learn from them, learn the good and learn the bad, and have a sounding board of people that I can trust. So, I'm constantly trying to learn and evolve and just kind of always be asking those questions.
Yeah, that's a great answer, because it's the truth, man. The more you get around people and surround yourself with people that are higher thinkers, and trying to be successful like yourself, the more you're going to strive for that success too. I mean, me personally, I'm part of a group called Arte. It's a similar thing, a bunch of group of entrepreneurs trying to better themselves in every aspect of life. And we have that group where we can talk to each other, ask a question to just better ourselves, and everybody's willing to help each other too. So I mean, that's what it's all about, is just being around that and pushing forward, like you said too. So great answer to that question. So let's go into some keep going to you personally. What were some major challenges that you have faced, in the smart home industry that affected your customers? How can we as business professionals prevent these struggles or challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the challenge has been always kind of reaching customers and just getting our name out there. So, for me, it's constantly doing different things, getting our name out in the mix. It's the podcast, it's going to conferences, meeting different people. So, we're a small company and kind of growing the brand. And so, and the other part of that is it's just kind of putting out a really quality product and letting that speak for itself. I think that's a part of it. You can throw as much money as you want behind, not great products, and you're only going to get so far. So starting with a great product and getting it out there from there has helped us grow and continue to innovate and put out great product.
Yeah, and preach about how great your product is and stick to it and not cheapen anything to try and go compete with the other people. And just, I mean, it's like I've said in the past too, we're not meant to work with everybody, but people find out that go with the cheaper product, they eventually will come back around, and that's playing the long term right there.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
most people don't ask this question. I've been asking it to every guest on my show. So I want to know what your plans are for the future. So most people ask about your past. So what are you thinking? Whether it's business or life, where will we see Adam Justice in the future? Who will you be?
Yeah, deep questions here. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, we just I want to continue to put out great product and solve people's problems. So, whether that's in our traditional business, in the, industrial and B2B space, or the consumer space, and with our smart home products, I just want to be proud of the products we put out in the world, help people solve problems, and keep doing that. So, we're not, the venture funded, grow and sell and things like that. If we can just, make a good living, employ some great people and continue to put out great products, I'm going to be happy with that. And, we don't have to be the number one brand in the space. And, that would be nice. But, I think I'm perfectly content with, just continuing to grow at a steady pace and put out great products. So that's what I'm looking to do. And on the personal side, I just want to be a good dad and raise some great kids and help them be happy and launch them into the world successfully too. So that's if you so the mark of a good Adam Justice would be if you hear about some other justices in the future.
Great answer right there. Love that. And final question, I ask everybody this question is, what exactly do people need to look for when hiring a smart home company, and why should they choose Adam Justice as their go-to guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's looking for people and companies that put in the work and quality behind their products. Some of what we talked about, are they, putting in the time to put together quality products that are built well and built to last, and continuing to innovate and add features to those products over time as well. So, I think that's things we do at ConnectSense, and we'll continue to, add and grow our product lines and the features of those products. So, look at those reviews, look at the press, look at everything a company's doing, and go from there. But, I think you can't go wrong with a quality product, and you won't regret you won't regret buying the best.
Exactly. I highly agree on that too. Highly agree with everything you've said today. So no, I really appreciate you coming on, man, taking your time. I know you're a busy guy. In last thing, real quick, where can people find and connect with you, and just bring up your podcast, obviously, again too.
Yeah, of course. So we'll go through a couple different things. So Twitter, you can find me at Adam Justice. You can find the Smart Home Show wherever you get podcasts, whether that's Overcast, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other podcast programs. So that's a show I co-host with Richard Gunther. It's a technology.fm. But you can find our show at smarthome.fm. And everything my company's doing, you can find at ConnectSense.com or GridConnect.com. So all the smart home product would be at ConnectSense.com and ConnectSense on all the social media channels as well.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate it. This has been a topic I've been really wanting to get on my show too, because it's so important. So thank you again for coming on.
No problem. It's been fun.
All right, guys. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.